Today, I want to talk about something that, for some people, including me, is really, really a sensitive topic. And that's this idea of forgiveness. There's so many confusing things and so many emotional triggers around that word. Sometimes people think forgiveness means pretending something away, and you're supposed to forgive somebody while you're still hurt, or somebody who did whatever they did gets to act like nothing happened. And so there's a jaded perspective, never gonna forgive. Urgh. That kind of feeling. And that also turns inward. I did a video several years ago and on YouTube, and it's still there, and we've gotten hundreds of thousands of views. It was about how to forgive yourself when you've hurt someone you love. And some people, a lot of people had a lot of positive comments, etc., from that video. And I'm going to talk about the content here because it's so important. It's important to repeat it. But some people, got back and said, well, would make comments like, well, you can forgive yourself, but they're not okay. And all of that might be true. In fact, often is true, because it's when you hurt someone, trust or, breach of trust or fidelity and those kinds of things, you can't fix that. You can't undo what's been done. When a word's been said, it's been said. And the effects are the effects. And if there's a thunderclap around it or a dagger to the heart, there is. So let's get some things out of the way. And I want to talk about this sensitive topic. Forgiveness doesn't mean ever what happened was acceptable, whether someone did something to you or you did something to someone else or a group, whatever the size of the group. But let's just talk about someone did something to you or you did something to someone. Forgiveness never means what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness doesn't mean danger is safe. It doesn't mean that consequences vanish and that trust magically regenerates or that truth gets softened into polite spiritual oatmeal. Never. Forgiveness, at the core, it means refusing to let yesterday govern the identity, the energy, the strategy, the choices, and the creation of today. We got to fix what we can. We got to change who we are and then add good to the world. And that's how we recover the power to design, build, and live our ultimate lives. Talking about forgiveness is something really dear to my heart because it was so much a part of my own journey and still is. And so I have a phrase in my personal truth document that says, I am forgiveness. I hold no negativity or frustration. I have compassion, grace, and patience for everyone, for everything. And that's a stance I choose to take. I don't control anyone else's thoughts about forgiveness or their behavior. But I want to start again by clearing away some of the most dangerous misunderstandings around that word. Like I said, it's not permission. It doesn't ever mean whatever happened was okay, or the person should or shouldn't have done it, whether it's you or somebody else. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again or invite them back in your house or lend them money or give them passwords or hand them another opportunity to set your life on fire. It never means that. Forgiveness is never pretending. Any veneer that you or someone else puts on to pretend, that's not forgiveness. Okay? It's spiritual, that's fakery. Forgiveness is not forgetting, nor is it spiritual amnesia. It's not taking a terrible event, putting lipstick on it, lavender-scented theology, and saying everything happens for a reason. That's a bunch of crap. While your soul is still bleeding through the carpet. Some things are wrong. Some things are cruel. Some things cause permanent damage. Some relationships should end. Some people should face consequences. Some situations require police, courts, physicians, therapists, lawyers, locked doors, changed phone numbers, and enough distance to require an airline ticket. You can do all of that and forgive. It's not about making danger safe. It's not about making your own. It's not about putting you in danger, but it is about making your soul free. Forgiveness doesn't repeal reality. We can't change the law of gravity, and we can't change what happened. Sometimes we treat forgiveness like it requires us to, eliminate the laws of reality. Someone breaks trust, and we imagine forgiveness means that trust instantly returns. Not so. Someone acts irresponsibly, and we imagine forgiveness means consequences should disappear. Someone harms us repeatedly, and we imagine forgives us means giving them continued access because we're trying to be loving. That is not forgiveness. That's volunteering to be in the sequel when the first, version was so bad. Gravity still works after forgiveness. If someone demonstrates they can't be trusted, wisdom pays attention. If someone commits a crime, legal consequences may remain. If a relationship becomes dangerous, distance might be essential. If a business partner steals, forgiveness doesn't require you to make them your CFO because you've achieved spiritual enlightenment. None of that, okay? Forgiveness is, we've talked about what it isn't. It's, I will tell the truth about what happened, take the action required by reality, including all those things, and I refuse to carry corrosive hatred as my permanent companion. I'm not going to carry those rocks. Boundaries are not bitterness. Consequences are not revenge. Wisdom isn't cruelty. And sometimes the most loving sentence in the world is, you can't do that here anymore. So for me, at least, there's two parts to this. One is forgiving others. And that plays a role for all of us because every one of us has been damaged, hurt, wounded, mistreated, betrayed in little ways and gigantic ways. When somebody hurts us, anger often arrives as a protective force. That makes sense. It says something mattered, a line was crossed, and damage occurred. And action may be required. Anger can help us leave or speak or protect or report or confront or establish a boundary. But anger is a terrible long-term architect. It might sound super powerful while quietly designing a prison. It builds a house, rooms out of resentment, installs windows that are constantly facing the past, and gives the offender a permanent key to our lives. Years later, the person may be nowhere near you, yet they still determine your mood, your conversations, expectations, relationships, and sometimes your health. They hurt you once or maybe repeatedly, and then somehow the memory of that gets a subscription plan. So let's talk about what it is. Forgiving them doesn't erase the responsibility. It ends their lease on your attention. No more rent-free space in my head or my heart. What you did may remain part of my history, but it will not remain the sovereign authority over the present. And that's where the big split is. The past versus the present. That was then, this is now. You will remember. You will still have scars, perhaps. I have scars. I had an incident with my brother. I'm not going to tell the story, not that it's secret, but, he threw a tennis ball, those cans that hold 3 tennis balls. He threw one of those cans at me when we were on the way home from the tennis courts one day, and the top of it had the plastic removed, and so it hit my shin and cut it to the bone. I was scared because we'd been angry at each other, and so was he. So I hid it from my parents. It needed stitches. I never got them. So I taped it together the best I could, and all it did was fill with scar tissue. So to this day, forever, I have a scar. And that's a small example. But we may still have scars from things, and we may still need caution. But the scar doesn't have to become part of our identity. Like the only time I ever think about that scar is because I'm talking about forgiveness, and it's an interesting story. But it doesn't color my relationship with my brother in any way, shape, or form. I love him and carry nothing. And that's a small example, but it illustrates the point of the scars can remain. You may have a limp forever. Someone breaks your leg, and you can forgive them and carry no leftover in the relationship. The wound doesn't deserve to become the architect of your future. And so choosing to go through the work of forgiving others simply means the past no longer has power in the present. Now, the other side of that coin that for me was much harder was forgiving yourself. And that was the subject of that video I did years ago. It's a harder room for many people, certainly was for me, especially difficult when you know you've caused real harm like I knew it. I said things, I did things, I betrayed people, I broke trust, I wasted relationships and years. I made choices that hurt people. I know that. I can't blame the weather, my childhood, memory in retrograde, or rewriting history, a temporary disturbance in the force. It was me. Now what? So here's where this is important. Some people decide that the morally right response is lifelong self-punishment. They rehearse the event, repeat the shame, and keep themselves emotionally chained to the worst version of who they were. I did that. That is misery, it is pain, it is self-destructive, and it can drive you to dark places. Okay? Somehow we get the picture that ongoing misery proves they care, and it doesn't. If I hurt somebody 10 years ago, and I did, and trying to respond by hating myself for the next 50 years isn't going to help them or me. I haven't repaired the damage. I simply removed another person from useful service. Self-loathing is not restitution. Shame is not holiness. Endless guilt doesn't restore what was lost. It merely eats up fully the power that could have been useful to become different and add good to the world. So guilt has a purpose. I'm not pretending you don't feel that. It says I acted out of alignment, maybe way out of alignment with who I'm capable of being. That's super valuable information. It can move us to apologize or prompt restitution where possible, or expose a pattern, or lead us toward change. But guilt is supposed to deliver a message, not take up, space and move into the guest room and start getting mail. Once the message is received, the work is to respond. And here's the things to do. What can I repair? Some things can be repaired. Okay, many cannot, especially the serious things. Okay, so what can I repair is first, and often, you can do a little bit, you can't do a lot, especially in breaches of trust or fidelity or those kinds of things. Question 2 is, what must I change? And the third question is, what good can I now create? If you hurt someone, or I hurt someone, I'll use me, I can apologize and I can make whatever restitution is possible given the circumstance. Whether the other person accepts your apology is not yours to control. The second thing that's so important is to change who you are, because who I was the person that did those things. I have to change that, so that person is now gone. And the third step is add good to the world, and that's the phrase that I use to do all the good you can. Become a different person and do everything you can in service as the new person. Now, whether the person you hurt ever talks to you again, or accepts the fact that you've changed, or accepts your apology and your effort to do good, you cannot control. Each person is on their own journey. And if someone that you hurt, are making that the central pain in their lives and saying, my life is ruined because these things happened. You can't fix that. If I turn it around and say the things that were done to me, this pile, if I sing the symphony of hate forever, then all it does is make me unavailable to serve. Forgiving yourself is the same thing. After you've fixed what you can and changed who you are, you must forgive yourself, because otherwise all you do is put a blanket over the person you can be. You darken the possibility of you being a beacon of light, a vessel of love, and a conduit of power. And if you say to yourself, I can never be any of that because I did these things, that's just turning down the divine nature in you. You've then said, because I did this thing a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, I can never be okay and add good to the world. That's a terrible choice, and it's not the truth of your divine nature. So the 3 steps: fix what you can, change who you are, add good to the world, and forgive others and yourself. I am forgiveness. With grace, compassion, and patience for everyone, for everything. And why? Because I want to be able to add good to the world, freedom. Okay? If we hold on to this guilt and shame, it's just mutated from teacher to jailer. I'm not saying deny what you did. We are able to decide who you will become because you finally told the truth. So fix what you can is really simple. Apologize without explaining. And you don't apologize to death. I'm sorry I hurt you is an apology. I'm sorry you felt hurt after misunderstanding the complicated situation created by my difficult week is like a hostage negotiation with beautiful grammar, right? Return what you took, pay what you owe, correct the public lie publicly, replace the object, repair the financial harm. Okay, where possible, admit the truth, own the truth, accept legitimate consequences, make restitution within your ability. But understand this, not most things, especially the serious ones, cannot be restored. A repaired vase is still a repaired vase. Trust, reputation, intimacy, safety, and confidence are not physical objects you can glue together or order overnight with free shipping. You may do everything available to you, and the other person may still not trust you. They may not forgive you. They may not want contact. They may need years. They may never accept your apology, but their response is not yours or mine to control. Our responsibility is to make the cleanest, sincere effort we can, and then each person's going to be responsible for their own healing path. Change who you are is so core to this. That's the second move after you fix what you can. An apology without transformation is just advance notice of the next, missile coming in. The deepest amends are made visible in how we're being now, becoming more honest, more disciplined, more careful with power, more compassionate, more reliable, more awake. Change does not mean announcing that you have changed every 11 minutes. People who are different don't need to push, don't need a press conference. The evidence begins to accumulate in who they're being, how they act. This is where the idea of the sovereign architect that I talk about. Design, build, and live your ultimate life. You examine the old design. What belief, wound, fear, habit, entitlement, addiction, or cowardice helped create that behavior that you now abhor? What architecture allowed the damage? And then you've got to redesign your life and do whatever that takes to design the life, the person that isn't the one that does that. You choose the identity, the new identity that you will practice. You build the structure that supports it. Boundaries around your own weakness. Get help. I had to get tons of help. I can't count the number of hours, with therapists and coaches and things. And establish daily practices. I've talked about before my own morning rituals, 2.5 hours, to create myself as the new version that I want to be. So I never touch the kind of person that I had been. Why? because that allows me to add good to the world. It allows me to love and to create. It allows me to love myself and everybody else and forgive everyone everything so that I can be a light. You can too. But as long as we stay covered in either guilt or shame because of things we've done, or frustration and resentment because of things others have done, all we do is pour water on the fire of truth in our soul. The last piece, fix who you are, fix what you can, change who you are, and add good to the world. That's the last part. And add good to the world is just a phrase I use to go about being the person you say. It's not about, performing charity to purchase innocence. Grace isn't a rewards program. You don't collect enough community service points to make the past disappear. It's not what we're talking about. Adding good means refusing to waste what we learned. You turn the scar into wisdom, the mistakes into humility, the failure into compassion, and the broken glass into a path marker for somebody walking behind you. Maybe you teach what you learned. I do. It's why I write books. Maybe you become safer, kinder, more generous, and more useful. Okay? Maybe you help somebody avoid the mistakes you made. I do that all the time with, the work that I do. Maybe you write a book. I've written 20 something. A program, a conversation, a business, a family culture, or just a quiet pattern of service that didn't exist before. Your past may explain how you got the wisdom, but it doesn't disqualify you from using it. In fact, sometimes the person who has walked out of a prison is the one most able to point to the door of freedom. Now, if we stay in unforgiveness, we don't forgive others, and we don't forgive ourselves, all that happens when we refuse to do that is the energetic effect is we're just covered in darkness. The power that you have to do good, to be good, to create is just trapped. Your power gets used up in anger, vigilance, resentment, revenge fantasies, replayed conversations, imaginary courtroom speeches delivered while showering. You may win every argument there. The shampoo is not impressed. When you refuse, or I refuse to forgive ourselves, power gets locked up in shame or guilt or concealment, self-sabotage, and the constant fear that someone will discover who you really are. I lived with that, said that all the time. Everybody, if they really knew who I was, they'd hate me. I don't feel like that anymore. I'm completely transparent and open. And everything that's happened is on display and written in the books. And I've done everything I can to fix what I can, change who I am, and add good to the world. And I can tell you it's a liberation place. It was so effective, I wrote a book on forgiveness. Surprise, surprise. It's called The Journey of Freedom, a journey of courage to a place of freedom and power. Forgiveness is the title. And it outlines the processes and the things that I did to create forgiveness for others and myself. Either way, whether it's anger at someone else, or resentment, or nurturing constant pain, or shame and guilt towards yourself, you lose your joy, you lose your leadership, your prosperity, right? All that just goes away because you're covered in those things. You can't be a full beacon of light while using half your electricity to illuminate the old crimes or the old shame. You can't be a clear vessel of love if you fill yourself daily with poison and then wonder why the service feels bitter. Forgiveness turns a corner and it returns the power that you are to the present. Now, we talk a lot about sovereignty, which is your sovereign right to design your life. Forgiveness is fundamental to sovereignty because you govern your present while yesterday has lost its executive authority, sovereignty in the present. And as long as we're given power to the past, we don't have that. If the person who hurt you still controls your emotional state, they remain seated in the control room of your life. If you refuse to forgive yourself, that guilt and shame's got their hands on all the knobs and buttons. If you refuse to allow yourself to change and then use that change to add good to the world, you stay forever burdened and limited. Forgiveness removes all that from the architect's chair. Now, it doesn't demolish history. Like I said, you may end up with a limp, spiritually or figuratively. So you can still add all the good you can to the world with the limp. The sovereign architect says, this happened. I do not lie about it. I repair what I can. I protect what's got to be protected. I change who I am, whatever must be changed. And I will not sacrifice the rest of my divine capacity at the altar of permanent resentment or shame. This is how you design and build and live the ultimate life. Not by recreating a flawless past. Nobody has one. And you can think you're the worst person that ever was. I have thought that a million times. And it's not true. So ask yourself, what is it that you might still be calling forgiveness that it is actually denial? Where do you need a boundary? Where do you need a consequence to remain? Where you might be staying in danger because someone told you love means unlimited access? Then ask the opposite questions. Where are you calling resentment protection long after the danger has passed? Where are you using anger to keep a connection, a negative connection alive? Where are you using shame of yourself as proof that you're taking responsibility somehow while refusing to really do the useful work of repair and change? If you harm someone, fix what you can, change who you are, and add good to the world. Then the forgiveness is theirs. Your transformation is yours. If someone harmed you, protect yourself, tell the truth, seek whatever justice is appropriate, and release the requirement that your ongoing suffering somehow balances the scales, because it doesn't. Forgiveness is not permission. All of these things I've shared with you today have come from crawling over the broken glass of this trail. I found it difficult, very difficult sometimes, on both sides. Forgiveness doesn't mean danger is safe or consequences vanish, but it means the past no longer owns the present. It means you can remember without continuing to bleed your power into that memory. It means you can retain boundaries without carrying hatred. It means that you allow love to be the motivating and healing force in your life. Remember 3 things. Fix what you can. Change who you are. Add good to the world. And then forgive yourself so that your life can be all that it can be, so that your love can grow, so that you can build structures in your life that reflect truth, love, ownership, wisdom, and service. Maybe the scar remains, but the scar can never own the day. I love you. I share these things every day with you because I've learned them. And I want you to be the sovereign architect. Design, build, and live your ultimate life. Purpose, prosperity, and joy. See you tomorrow.